right, welcome back. You see same wonderful faces. Thank you all for watching. If you have not watched the first video, go back and watch it. But today we're going to talk about, well, I'm saying today, but you know it's the same day. They know that. I just have to say that, you know, that helps my brain. So thank you, Skylar. Thank you, Skylar. Okay. Today, this episode that you're going to see is all about differences between men and women. And so I know that sounds kind of like, what in the world, right? But a lot of times, you know, they do say men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right? We think different. We express our emotions differently. We solve problems differently, right? We want to communicate differently. All those things. Those are just things you hear. I want to hear exactly from the horse's mouth, right? What do you all think are some of the largest differences between men and women? Just in general.
I'd be more than happy to start out.
Okay. And you better be nice, because I will fuck my sister.
I'm not even going to mention your sister.
Okay.
I would say, I feel like men, we tell women exactly what we want.
No sugar.
Whether they hear it or not, but women don't express, to be an emotional being, this is just me talking. I don't feel like at times you express everything that you want. So I'm hungry. Well, what do you want to eat? I don't know. I mean, say exactly what I don't have, and then you make a recommendation. I don't have a taste for that. Okay, so then what do you have a taste for? Well, I don't know. So, or what do you need? What can I help you with? And again, this is not even a personal thing. It's just in my observation over years, over time, you know, men can express exactly what they want, and then when you ask for a reciprocation, it's not always there.
To kind of piggyback off of that, being a married man, I'm Greg Williams, by the way. Piggyback off of that. So I guess men are kind of looked at to be like the protector, you know, the backbone of the house, kind of. But when I get into constant arguments, let's say arguments with my wife, I try to back off and just hear her, and I'm being short. And I was listening to a podcast the other day saying, like, a lot of men do that to avoid an argument. But instead of avoiding an argument, you're just making the argument worse by being short. So it's kind of like a happy medium. Like, I'm telling my wife, like, hey, I'm not trying to, you know, I'm not trying to get there. Let's handle this in 20 minutes or so. Learned this from my therapist. Like, if you don't want to take it to a certain level, have a trigger word, you know, I don't know, anything, Miami, to say, like, I need a break, let's handle this in an hour. So I've started to use that a little bit more. I feel like women, when it comes to arguments, they're emotional at times. I think men are too, but like 0 to 100 is quicker for women in arguments, to me. Especially to me, when I can be a little bit of an a-hole when I argue. So yeah, I don't know if I expressed anything there, but you know, try to come back to the argument rather than handling it right then and there with emotion.
If I can add to that, men like to process.
Yeah.
So again, because we know women are emotional beings, you don't want to say something that's out of pocket or to the point trigger words, because it'll come back later. And so
you come back.
So you want to you basically want to process and make sure that you hear and understand what was actually being said, because then you know you are heard. And now say, okay, let me do a self-examination of what has been said. Okay, how could I have done something differently? What could I have said that was different? Or how did my actions cause where we are now? And men like to think about that. So it's not as if we're shutting down or being quiet, but at that time you do need some moments to just make sure that you are in the place that you need to, so that it de-escalates any situation that might be there.
I think that married couples need to have rules when they communicate, especially when their emotions are high. Because a lot of times men have if a woman brings a problem to a man, she may have something in her mind, but then again, she'll move the goalposts when you start discussing it. It'll become about something else, and you're sitting there, I thought we was talking about, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of times you need to have rules in those discussions. Let's stay on point. and agree on those rules. Let's stay on point and stay on topic until we get this thing resolved, instead of moving the goalposts. You know what I mean? I think men and women need to sit down as couples and have rules of how they're going to discuss those intense moments before you get into them.
And that's how many years of experience?
28.
Mama Dilly, we love you. Anybody else? I'm going to wait and hear because I'm taking it all in. Anybody else? Buddy?
The married brothers hit the mic.
I was about to say, how for
My
y'all?
name is Matthew Banks.
You said that.
Me,
Last episode.
I'm not a person, a man that likes to. I'm not really confrontational. I mean, I might be thinking about something else, and then all of a sudden you rush me with something. I might shut down. I might not even deal with it right now, but I'll come back to it later, because I don't want anything to escalate. I don't want to offend anyone with me just backing down and having a thought about it instead of just saying stuff, without a thought.
So taking time to think.
Yes.
Can I ask you, since y'all who's all married? Raise your hand. Okay. Let me ask, because I'm somebody. Okay, so I don't want to hijack your show, Jazz, but I need to ask a question. So here's the thing. I don't ever want to get married for multiple reasons. My God, I got multiple reasons why I don't got married. Some we'll put it out, some we won't. But I'll say this: I don't want to get married. Most obvious is because, well, so I've never seen a marriage from a standpoint that was
Successful.
Healthy.
so many words. I just like growing up, I saw my parents like argue a lot. Dad, if you watch this, I ain't trying to tell you business, bro. But love you. But I saw my parents argue a lot, and I was just like, man, when I get married, when I grow up, I'm like, I'm gonna be single, and I really am, and I really am committed to like the bachelorhood of my life. But I want to ask the older gentleman. I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna ask the older gentleman now. Like,
What would you think I am?
huh?
Go ahead.
How old are you?
42. And I've been married 18 years this month.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna add you to the thing too as well. That's more than that. That's great. Okay, so let me ask y'all a question. This is about arguments. So do y'all think? So when y'all get to arguments, does it just like sneak up on y'all, or do y'all like feel it like this is something that y'all knew was coming like days in advance, or just like it happens?
Or are there just triggers?
That was the piece that I was going to say is Gregory mentioned triggers and not saying triggers. You know some things that have been stated in the past, and what's a trigger? Has it been resolved?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're on edge like, ooh, I don't want to say that. I don't mean any harm.
Yeah.
But it could be a trigger.
Yeah.
But what we have to understand is when you get married, there's two different people that are coming from two different backgrounds. Thought processes are different. So you have to be able to know that you're going to have uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
Because to me, if you do not have a disagreement, I'm a little scared in that.
Yeah.
Right?
Fair.
Because how are you bringing value and to see different perspectives? Because we're men and women. You're going to have two different perspectives.
Right.
It's how you resolve that. And to the point that I made earlier, men, we like to sit back and think about it from a holistic standpoint, right? So you can't shy away from difficult conversations. And that's what I think when people look at marriage, they think it's going to be perfect and everything. There's never going to be an argument. There's never going to be a dislike. Otherwise, you're looking like each other. You're talking like each other. Then we get into boredom.
Yeah.
Now I'm bored because we don't do anything different. What value are you bringing? What's different that you're going to bring to the table?
Yeah.
So you can't shy away from the disagreements because they're always going to be there, but that's where the growth comes. How do you handle it? Do you then fester in it and say, okay, I'm not going to learn. I was right and that person was wrong? Sometimes you have to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I know you said you wanted this from an older folk.
I'm
diss.
gonna go with it. 'Cause I'm not married at all,
I'll-
so I'm just
I'll-
go with it. Whatever you got, I'll take it.
I was gonna say I've been with my wife, in our relationship together since 2015.
Okay.
And unlucky enough, I hate saying this, phrasing this way, we're both from failed marriages. And the one thing I learned this year, having my second kid, the person that you marry and the person that you start off your relationship is completely different in the present. So we're learning and we're being more aware from the the trauma in our life, that what impacted us to argue a certain way, or to shy away from an argument, or for her to approach the argument and then back off. So I think the one thing I learned this year, another word, is grace.
Yeah.
Giving my wife grace, because I know emotionally women, especially after having kids, they go through a lot.
Yeah.
My mom, having 2 kids, she went through a lot.
Yeah.
My dad, being old school, didn't care.
Yeah.
Provide for the house, I'm good to chill, go play dominoes the rest of the night.
Yeah.
Where I'm at now, I'm learning that my wife doesn't just care about monetary, to go off of that last conversation. She wants emotional support, she wants time, and she wants just a good family quality of time.
Yeah.
Not just like, hey, let's go out, have like a 5-star meal or whatever. She doesn't care about none of that.
Yeah.
And I think we're learning from that, and we're learning from like the failures of our upbringing, and that's what's kind of motivating us to handle arguments. And this year, compared to any other year the past 10 years, we've probably gone through the most arguments.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this has probably been the biggest blessing of the year, is because we've made so much growth.
Yeah.
I'm actually glad. Oh, my name is Taylor Tankston. I'm glad you touched on that about failed marriages, because I am from a broken home. You know, my parents, I think, were on the verge of getting divorced when I was about to be born. I think I was maybe a couple months before I was born or something like that. And then my mom actually remarried, and then they got a divorce. So I know all about. I was getting ready to say that it's a lot of trauma coming from that when you come into dealing with a woman, because you know I grew up in a house full of women. Like my mom had her friends, my aunts, and all those close friends. Like everybody, the women and actually the men were gravitated to my mom because of her personality and her love that she provides and things like that. But when it comes to dealing with women, like it's like I don't really know how to, even though I grew up in a house full of women, because you honor your mom differently than how you interact with a woman that you're trying to bring into your life. So for me, like you were saying, like it's like, so when a woman's going to come in and have that type of argument, it's like immediately it's like, oh, I'm gonna shut down. You know what I'm saying? I might say some things, but we're not gonna get to the root of it really, because I don't know how to really deal with the root of it, because I've never been in that situation. And the situation that I saw was just completely unhealthy. So the root of it was never really addressed, And so when it comes to thinking of the aspect of trying to now be like, all right, I need to start considering like, I want to get married, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's like, I haven't seen in my immediate home, I haven't seen a marriage that has been successful. So you find yourself looking on the outside like, okay, they have 2-parent homes, they have 2-parent homes, they have 2-parent homes. Or you start to think in your mind like, all right, what is it that I don't have that they have? You know what I'm saying? And so when it comes into dealing with women, it's like, shoot, let me just back off a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And it's like I just become nonchalant. It's not intentional, but it's because I know that's all I know how to do: run, duck, and hide. Emotionally, not physically, but emotionally, because you don't know how to express those. And so I was like, I wasn't gonna say nothing, but I was like, the Lord, I believe the Lord opened that door. Like we've come, you and your wife have experienced failed marriages, and so I think also that's what the difference is. When 2 people have come from broken homes, it's like I'm trying to figure out how to be there for her, and she's trying to figure out how to be there for me, but we both don't know how to, because we've never seen it. And I think that's also what the difference is with men. Like the women, no disrespect, but they're gonna go, gonna keep touching, gonna keep poking, gonna keep doing all that stuff until they get a reaction out of you. But as for me, I think you said men are thinkers. Me, I like to see the big picture. What's the end result of this argument? Are we gonna find common ground, or are we gonna argue, act like we found common ground, go our separate ways, and then try to come back later on, but still there's an underlying issue? You know what I'm saying? So I think that may be some of the differences in between man and woman in that aspect, but I can only really speak for me, you know what I'm saying? Because I really haven't given relationships like a real time of day to really experience or delve into that. So I just know me from what my experience is, it wasn't a good one. And the reason why I respond the way I do, much like Brother Banks said, is I don't like confrontation. I don't like drama. I don't like argument. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit back, I'm going to listen to you, but ultimately it's like the bigger picture is like, what is the resolve of this? Are we just arguing just to argue? or is there going to be something that's going to come a common ground where we're allowed to see, like, hey, you know, I'm wrong in this, I apologize, and it doesn't even have to be there apologizing, but it's all about, you know, what the head of the household does first in order to kind of set the atmosphere to kind of bring it back together.
Yeah.
So I hope that makes sense.
It did. A lot of sense.
You said a lot of good stuff, Taylor. I think a lot of men don't like confrontation when it comes to their wives, and we try to avoid confrontation. But as Christian men, we can't avoid confrontation. We have to meet it head on. Again, there has to be rules to the engagement, and as the head of the household, we have to set those rules of engagement. I mean, our wife has to be in agreement with them, but again, a lot of the arguments and confrontations come from a lack of disrespect on both sides, because one person's not listening, or both people are not listening to really what the other person is saying. You know, they're not really affirming that other person so that that other person feels heard. So when you have those deep arguments like that, they are futile, they are useless. There is no rhyme or reason for it until you get to the point where you can establish some rules of engagement and have those discussions where both people are listening, giving space and giving grace to the other person, so that you can feel heard, that both people can leave feeling heard.
I have to share this because listening to all of you, Skylar, you're not by yourself. Mom, don't kill me, but I'm going to tell a little bit of my story, right? I always told my parents I saw the absolute worst and I saw the absolute best in one house.
Yeah.
Because my parents were so young when they both got married. They were like 19 and 21, their first marriages. Then were divorced, both of them, within a year or two, something like that. Yeah. And then they got married, that had to be 10 years later, to each other. And my mom being super, super quiet, but very strong because of all the stuff she went through in her life. And my dad being very not confrontational. My dad was not a confrontational man, but he was going to say what he had to say. Yeah. And he didn't care if people liked it or not. He was just going to say it. Yeah, I mean, that was him. That could butt heads a lot. Sure. When you have a woman that's like, this is what I want, how I like it, and she ain't trying to hear. And I remember at the very end, it was maybe like 2 months before my dad passed, he was like, I'm in this class, and we need to do this test. We need to do this. And I was like, okay. And once he had something in his head, that was it. You was going to get it done because he was not going to let it go. And it was a relationship quotient thing. And it basically was like listening, kindness. I'm making stuff up, right? Because I can't remember everything. But each person had to score each other and for themselves, and then they had to score the other person. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because they both almost identical to each other. They gave each other the same scores. And I thought that was interesting because my dad made us go and sit in the dining room and talk about it. So y'all can imagine if you knew my father. Yes. And it was so interesting because he was like, why are you like our therapist? And I said, because I am right now. Yeah. Like, this is not my job to be your therapist, but here we are. And it was so interesting to me because what they learned in that moment was that together, and I don't think they had the words for this yet, but they never made rules for their engagement. Yeah. So like listening to each other. You know, my mom has a way she listens. You know, they talk about love languages. Yeah. Right? A lot of people love their partner the way they like to be loved and listen. And love is not just the physical, it's how you like to be listened to, how you like to be, right? And vice versa. And I remember one time I said, okay, we're going to do love languages. And I said, Dad, you are quality time and words of affirmation because I am your child, right? Just the girl virgin. Yeah. My mom, gifts and acts of service. Yeah. Like two totally different people. And I just said that. And when they took the test, it was spot on, right? That it was exactly it. And so it was so interesting because I said, Dad, you've been loving Mom the way you want to be loved. And I said, Mom, you have been loving him. Did I say that? reverse. Y'all know what I meant.
I got you.
The vice versa. And I said, yeah. It was so interesting because I saw right there how many arguments came out of that, right? You're loving him the way you want to be loved, and he's loving you the way he wants to be loved. And so when you talk about listening to each other, understanding each other, you can't do that if you're only looking at it from your perspective, right? And so I think for me, when I hear you say, you saw all those arguments, I want to be married, right? I know that I'm going to be a wife and a great wife, right? But there's this thing in my mind where I go, I hope I can be with someone who understands that we have to have rules of engagement, right? You're not just going to come in and think like, I don't have to say nothing, just what I say goes, and that's just how it is. It's like, no, we have to care about what each other feels, because that makes a difference in your partnership, right? That teamwork. And it was so cool because, and I can say this because this was their testimony, after that my parents they had a little spicy conversation, and my mom went up to her room, my dad, spicy conversation, okay? My mom went to her space, my dad went to his space, and my mom was like, I don't care, I'm just done, I'm done with this. And I was like, all right, ma'am, you're not done, really, you're just angry. Right? And my dad goes, I can't live my life like this, I can't live it. And I was like, Daddy, you're going to be fine. And it was so funny because I let them cool off, and I went back to my dad, and my dad was like, I ain't missing heaven over arguing with my wife. And I was like, Daddy, oh my God, both of y'all are so dramatic, right? And it was so interesting because after that everything I've shared with y'all, I saw my parents, like you said, Stephen, they started communicating so differently, right? And they enjoyed the last few months of my dad's life, like in a way I had never seen before. They enjoyed each other, it wasn't like their whole life, but that was so special to me because I saw if two people truly decide, one, they're going to honor God in their relationship, but also practice honoring each other, what a difference that makes. And so sometimes I felt a little left out, but I was glad, especially now that my dad is not here, because that was time that they got back with each other. And so that brings me to just this final question of this segment. Like, how do you all feel about if you are with somebody doing premarital counseling, doing some type of counseling before you make this life-altering decision, right, to do life and covenant with somebody? Like, what are you all's thoughts about that? Do you think it's relevant, important?
I think it's key to do premarital counseling, but also do the work on yourself, period. I mean, even for the guys that are not married, you all have relationships with women. And that's where your training starts, just how you treat women in general. Yeah. How you view them. Do you view them as a nuisance? Do you view them? Because I think Stephen made the point, we come up with all the baggage, we enter into relationships. Unpacking some of that baggage and resolving some of that and doing the work for yourself. There's so many tools, so many books, podcasts out there that can help you. I mean, including therapy, but there's a lot of other resources that can help you too.
Premarital counseling, I think, is real good because you need to discuss some things that you could potentially face in marriage. I'm thankful for my wife. 18 years, everything hasn't been a bed of roses. It hasn't been all peaches and cream. Again, we're going into 18 years. And I told her, I said, listen, we're year 18. Now we're in the maturity stage. As I was a child, I spake as a child. I thought as a child. But now you put away child. Think about when you were 14. You did stuff that you didn't even really think about could impact you down the road. So now looking at it, when you look in marriage, there should be the things that we've experienced over the last 18 years should help us now to be mature in our relationship. There may not be as many disagreements. There may still be some because you're continuously learning and you change. As you get older, things that you used to like, you may not like anymore. So those conversations are key so that you can understand, where do I need to shift? Thoughts, okay, she may have used to like gifts. That was her love language. Maybe now that has changed to where I really do want quality time, because as we're getting older, our children are getting older. We have 5 children. So finding that quality time, is key to say, okay, now I have to still keep the fire burning because of all the other things, the distractions around us from running here, running there, and our involvement. So again, it's kind of a moving target, but you have to always be willing to adapt, to change, and then to recognize that people evolve.
Yeah. That's another question. It's a straight shooter question. So, beyond the physical, what are some of the benefits that all you married guys that you find in your marriage? So I said beyond the physical, beyond. Beyond. I mean, this is a church podcast, right? It's a gospel podcast.
I mean, not necessarily.
Say what's on your mind.
Say what's on your mind.
Well, beyond humping, I'm asking. Beyond humping, what are the benefits? Well, I mean, humping. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. So what are your benefits that you enjoy from marriage? Not to be long. You can just be like it can be one word.
Kind of pick off what I said from before. I feel like it's common sense for me, at least. Again, like my wife and I, before we were married, we were together from 2015 to 2021 when we got married. We went through a lot of life-changing events, death, losing jobs. She's seen me go through, start from ground zero to where I'm at now. I've seen her go through ground zero to where she's at now, losing her father, me losing a lot of people in my family and close loved ones. I don't know, like I feel like a lot of stuff kind of makes you stronger in a sense because you're coming together as one. And to repeat what my grandmother used to say, and I'm butchering it, but you guys are both bringing something to the table. Half glass, like water full. You're bringing your half, she's bringing her half. Whenever you put any amount of alcohol in it, you're going to both get each other drunk off of that. It's going to ruin something. So you want to make sure that you're open communication. You're, attacking whatever's going like messing you up at that moment. You don't want to just pocket it and just let it come back to you next week or next month because all it's going to do is blow up. And I feel like just seeing where she's come from at the time that I met her to where she's at now, and hearing her say the little things that was what mattered to her. Me being there, the first person being there for her the morning that her dad passed, compared to her sister. I'm like, I thought that was just the right thing, common thing to do, right? But not all people think that way. So that's why I love my wife, is because the little things matter to her the most. And growing up for me, seeing how my mom and my Caribbean family are, they're all about gift giving, money, all that stuff. And I always thought like me trying to spoil her was the way of making my marriage a success. It's completely not. It's about just the love language, just time, quality, and all that. So just being in a relationship and seeing just the little things flourish is what makes me happy to know that like I'm doing something positive.
You had a comment on premarital counseling?
Oh yeah, the premarital. I didn't feel like I needed premarital counseling just because I work at the Y. I got. I had to go outside of my household to see what it's like to be a good. And I don't want to diss my dad. To be a good husband, like my dad, very old school, Caribbean too, and just to say it's old school. And just to see what my mom said the day of my wedding, be a good husband, and make sure you don't waste 30 years of your life being married to somebody. Don't feel like you have to stay with somebody just because you have kids with the person. Like they love each other, but they don't love each other to be together as one. And she felt like she had to stay from my brother Rich and I just because she had to, right? So my dad's a good person. I think he's a good father, but a horrible husband. And I learned from that. I asked questions to some of my closest friends' fathers. People at the Y, just watching them, asking them questions. I spent one whole year, people don't know this, I spent one whole year before I proposed asking questions. My wife is white. I talked to her father right before he passed, literally a week before he passed. Do I have your blessing to marry your daughter? At first he didn't like me, mainly because of my skin. And he said, I see how you operate. I see that you're going after your degree. I see how happy she is. That's something that I've never seen her, even like amongst his family, like how her spirits is uplifted. And hearing that, I'm just like, man, that's all I need.
Yeah.
And then I asked her sister's blessing after he passed, and they cried. So I didn't necessarily feel like I needed counseling just because I talked to God for a whole year, man. And I just like, he told me, like, just do it. What's stopping you from marrying this person? Like, you know, so I feel like we always overthink it, you know, going into marriage or whatever. Like, hey, it has to be perfect. No, it doesn't have to be perfect. You guys have to be willing to work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think the word is commitment. You got to be committed and to know that things are not going to be the way that you see them on Hallmark or Lifetime, right? The realistic view of it. I think we go and we have a lot of unrealistic expectations. But to answer your question, Skylar, for me is to see how my wife, you come in, she can't complete me, but how she enhances my life. Where with our children, so 4 girls and 1 boy, she's more the nurturing one, where I'm the straight, nope, don't do it. It's not gonna be like that. Where then she's nurturing, she's caring, she can come behind. Where if my tone was off, she'll be able to come and hey, this is what your dad really was saying, and then gives a life example, a life lesson. So we enhance there. Just being willing to try different things. My wife loves to try different things. So that pushes me to get out of my comfort zone to say, okay, man, I'm used to it. I may not have done that before, but realizing you're bringing something different to the table. Like I said before, you don't want to marry yourself. Right? Because then you're going to have boredom. You don't feel like you're moving forward or progressing. But that's what I really, really appreciate about my wife is that where I am weak in an area, she's able to not only encourage me, but she's also able to help navigate through that process. And when we start talking about manhood, oftentimes I don't think as men we're given the opportunity to fail. We don't feel like we can fail because we're supposed to be that perfect one. We're supposed to be that leader that, you know, of the household, the protector, but we don't feel, we can't be vulnerable enough to admit I have failed. And as black men in society, we don't have that opportunity to fail. We have to work extra hard. And so then if you don't have that opportunity at home to fail, then that can also be a challenge of when we look at the home and relationships and how it can kind of be a negative, if you will. We look at it in the community and say, well, they're not doing this, that, the other. But knowing you're able to fail, but where you lack, your partner should be able to strengthen. You're not necessarily saying this person completed me, because you should be complete before you get into that relationship.
Come on, Church.
And working through that, but enhancing and kind of pointing out what your strengths are and where we don't want to say weaknesses, but what areas you can develop.
I would add to that, just walking out life with somebody, Skylar, to reference your question. Walking out life with somebody, over the past year, my wife and I have experienced a lot of grief because we've had losses in our family. But having her there and her having me there has made a world of difference. So all of those intimate moments, the good and the bad, to share life with and walk through life with somebody. It's more than just having a friend. You know what I mean? A female friend or another confidant. But doing that, walking life out with somebody, you can't replace that.